Deep in the heart of Massachusetts, where history practically breathes from the cobblestone streets, there's a town. And on the surface, it looks absolutely perfect. A real model of New England charm. But if you scratch just beneath that pristine surface, you find a story so dark, so unsettling, that the people who live there decided it had to be forgotten. Forever. This is the incredible story of a town that tried to erase its own past.
So it really makes you wonder, right? What could possibly happen that would make an entire community agree to just erase a piece of itself? And maybe the bigger question is, can a secret that massive ever really stay buried? I mean, really, that's the question we're going to dig into.
And get this wasn't some slow fade into obscurity. No, this was a deliberate choice. We're talking about a, quote, found buried in some unofficial town council minutes from way back around 1888 that just lays it all out. It shows the chilling, calculated decision they made. They agreed to surgically remove an entire chapter from their own history. But the big question is always the same, isn't it? Why? What were they so desperate to hide?
All right. Section 1. The Gilded Facade. To really get a grip on this cover-up, you first have to see what they were trying so hard to protect. I mean, this was a town that was all about its image, its perfect, shiny facade. I mean, if you look at their official history, it reads like a classic American success story. Seriously. Founded way back in 1642. Played a big role in all those early colonial events. By 1850, it was an industrial powerhouse. And by 1901, it was being celebrated as this perfect model of New England prosperity. It was literally everything a town could ever want to be remembered for.
And that right there, that's the real tension at the heart of this whole thing. While all the public history books were singing praises of progress and civic pride, something else, something much darker and way more complicated was happening behind closed doors. A story that they decided the world could never, ever know.
Okay, so Section 2, the scandal that broke. Because, every perfect picture has a breaking point. And for this town, oh boy, that breaking point wasn't just some little crack in the paint. No, it was a full-blown scandal. We're talking something so big, it threatened to bring the whole thing crashing down.
This is what historians sometimes call an unwanted legacy. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's some event or a whole period of time that is so shameful, so damaging to how a community sees itself, that the only solution they can come up with is to just pretend it never happened. So what was their unwanted legacy?
Well, here's the thing. It wasn't just one event. It was like a perfect storm of disaster and disgrace. First, you had a catastrophic industrial accident, a boiler explosion at the main mill that killed dozens of people. A tragedy that was just silenced to protect the town's reputation. Then you had widespread financial corruption. We're talking town leaders literally stealing money meant for public works. On top of that, a whole series of unsolved crimes, like arsons, that seemed to target anyone who asked too many questions. And there were whispers of these controversial social practices, these unusual groups that went against everything the era stood for. And, as if that wasn't enough, a bitter, nasty public feud that just ripped the community apart at the seams. Any one of those things would be bad enough, but all of them together? It was a full-blown identity crisis.
So now we're at Section 3, erasing the evidence. Because faced with this complete meltdown, the town's leaders made a fateful choice. They decided they weren't going to learn from their history. Nope, they were going to erase it.
And this wasn't sloppy. It was a methodical, systematic campaign. First, public records. Think birth certificates, death certificates, court documents, even newspaper archives. They were all either carefully altered or they just disappeared. Then, the official town histories were rewritten, conveniently leaving out that entire period. Key landmarks that might remind people, like the old mill, were renamed or just torn down. But maybe the most powerful tool of all was social pressure. Just this unspoken rule: you do not talk about this. And that's how they silenced anyone who might have spoken up.
So you end up with this massive disconnect. On the one hand, you have the official story, industrial prosperity and innovation. But what was hidden was the real human cost, the dangerous working conditions. They remembered strong civic leadership, but what was hidden was the rampant corruption and secret deals. And they presented this image of a peaceful, orderly society, when the truth was a community terrified by unsolved crimes and whispered fears. They literally curated their own memory. Which brings us to Section 4, History's Long Shadow. Because here's the thing about history. You can try to bury it, but ghosts don't always stay buried, do they? The decision to erase the past didn't actually solve anything. It just cast this long, long shadow over the town's future.
And it really does pose the ultimate question, doesn't it? Can history ever really be erased? I mean, sure, you can burn the records, you can change the names on the street signs, but can you ever truly, completely extinguish the memory of what actually happened?
Well, if you look at the numbers, the answer seems to be no, not entirely. I mean, the cover-up was shockingly effective. A huge 85% of the community today only knows that clean official history. But look at that 12%, that small slice. That's where the truth lived on. It survived in hushed tones over the dinner table, in stories passed down from grandparents, maybe in an old shoebox of documents tucked away in an attic. The truth, it seems, always finds a way to whisper.
So what we're left with today are these huge gaps. It's like a puzzle with most of the key pieces just gone. And it leaves us with so many questions, right? Like, do the descendants of the people involved even know the full story? Are there still forgotten documents stashed away somewhere, just waiting to be found? What about physical traces? Old foundations or forgotten graves that might still hold clues? And maybe the biggest question of all, how has this deliberate forgetting shaped what that town is today?
And all of this leaves us with one last kind of fascinating thought. Every town, every city has its proud moments, its heroes that they build statues of. But maybe, just maybe, every town also has its shadows, its own unwanted legacies. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What secrets might be buried just under the surface of the place that you call home?